Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling, and I know it's not Wrestlemania season, but this has been on my mind for a while. Today, I'm going to rewrite Wrestlemania 27. Now, I promised I'd bring back the Rewriting Wrestlemania series, but I try to hold off till Wrestlemania season, but I've been watching a lot of late 2010 recently, and kind of watching the old game show NXT, and some Raws and SmackDown, some Superstars. And I think I was watching old school Raw recently from that time period, and it wasn't the greatest time period for wrestling, but I just remember watching it a lot with friends, and I was in college, and people were really into the product, so it always helps when you can share it with other people. It makes it a little more memorable. So, WrestleMania 27, definitely not the greatest WrestleMania of all time, and you ask yourself, how could a WrestleMania with The Rock be this bad? He was the guest host. But the guest host, his duties weren't quite clear other than, making announcements and shouting his catchphrases here and there, and of all things, shouting yabba dabba doo with the crowd. And, Fruity Pebbles jokes notwithstanding. And, but I would still put The Rock in at this event. I don't know. Well, I would put him, I guess you could say guest host. I can't think of what else you would call him, but I would have him take up as much airtime as he did, 30-minute promo that, he could have put in another match. So anyways, let's get down to it, shall we? We're going to go in match order here, and we're going to start with a dark match all the way up to the main event, because the dark match, they would release, in those days, they would release it as a DVD extra, so it would be a dark match the night of WrestleMania, but come next month, when they release the 3-disc set DVD, be featured as an extra, and you can watch it at home. So, here's the Battle Royal for those 24 men that could not make it on the card this evening. It would be a Battle Royal featuring the Great Khali, Ted DiBiase Jr., Zack Ryder, Evan Bourne, David Otunga, Husky Harris, Michael McGillicuddy, Mason Ryan, those 4 Nexus members, Ezekiel Jackson, JTG, David Art Smith, Chavo Guerrero, Primo, Mark Henry, R-Truth, Yoshi Tatsu, Kurt Hawkins, Tyler Rex, Chris Masters, Trent Beretta, Tyson Kidd, and Johnny Curtis. Wow, that's a mouthful there. So the person I'd have win this one is the Great Khali, because he actually won a Battle Royal when this did in fact happen in real life. It started out as a U.S. title match that was supposed to be on the card between Sheamus and Daniel Bryan, but due to time constraints, a lot of it having to do with Rock's long promo, and then Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler going too long, I believe. That match got cut, and then it became a lumberjack match, which only lasted 5 minutes till Teddy Long came out and declared it a Battle Royal. For some reason, Great Khali won. It's not like he was being pushed or anything. He returned at the Royal Rumble in 2011, and, he's a big guy winning a Battle Royal. Once in a while, you gotta let the big guy win, not have him be the first one out all the time. So I'd have him take out all the Nexus guys in the end, and that's pretty much it. We're going to move on to better stuff. Now we get to the actual pay-per-view. We're going to kick it off with a match that did, in fact, happen in real life, and I'd keep it just the same. Rey Mysterio versus Cody Rhodes, and I'd have Cody Rhodes go over as the winner. In January of 2011, Mysterio and Rhodes had a match on SmackDown, and Mysterio's knee brace smashed right into Cody Rhodes' face during a 619 attempt, and it damaged the Dashing One's good looks. He couldn't believe himself. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw what he looked like after Mysterio clunked him with the knee brace to the face. So he wore this plexiglass mask, and the gimmick, I think, was more or less that the scars while they started out physical, the scars were more mental. Kind of like Kane in 2003, a little bit, when Kane was forced to remove his mask. All the burn marks went away, which didn't really make sense because he was supposed to be a burn victim, but the scars were mental, all up in here. So that's kind of what's going on with Cody Rhodes, His face got crushed. And that happened to Undertaker in 95 with King Mabel, but that's another story. Cody's extracting revenge, and this is his first major singles match at Mania, so Cody has to get the win here. Mysterio's had enough success at Mania by this point. He doesn't need the win. He wouldn't benefit from it. So I'd keep this one just the same. And it was a great match. I mean, they probably had a better one the following month at Extreme Rules in 2011. It was a Falls Count Anywhere match, but for a Mania match, this one's good and probably doesn't even need to go super long, so it would be a continuation after this event. Next match would be the Intercontinental Championship, which there was no IC title match. Wade Barrett was the champion. He'd beat Kofi Kingston a couple weeks prior to Mania. So Kofi Kingston would be the Intercontinental Champion, defending against Drew McIntyre. Now, this match has already happened a couple of times in 2010, once at Over the Limit, and then again at Fatal 4-Way, which a friend of myself and a friend were there at Fatal 4-Way, and Kofi won both times. So in this match, initially none of these guys had anything to do on the card, and Kofi was a last-minute replacement in that 8-man tag match. That did in fact happen in real life. Now, there's a little bit of significance because you could make an argument that Drew McIntyre's momentum was stopped by Kofi Kingston in the spring of 2010. Mr. McMahon had touted Drew McIntyre to be a future world champion upon his debut in September 2009. And McIntyre had Mr. McMahon's backing up until McMahon got attacked by the Nexus, and then the preferential treatment stopped. So McIntyre could be extracting revenge. My career's been on a downhill path, since you took that Intercontinental Championship from me. By this point, Kofi gets the belt back from Dolph Ziggler in a very good match on SmackDown. It's one of many they've had together. And, he blamed Kofi for it. And because they weren't really doing much with McIntyre post-McMahon, I would actually have Kingston go over with the victory here, because then he'll go on to defend it or lose it to somebody else down the line. So, yeah, I would say, Kingston's going to retain here. And then McIntyre didn't really think much forward as far as what they do with him afterwards, but that's about it for that one. Next match would be the WWE Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way. The defending champions walking into this one would be the Nexus members, Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel. They were actually tag champs at the event, but they were under the gimmick. They were under the Core stable at the time. So there would be no Core in my world here because the Nexus should have continued, and you'll see why a little bit later on. So Slater and Gabriel of Nexus defend against Big Show and Kane, Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov, and Jimmy and Jay Uso. Now the Usos were nowhere near as popular as what they'd become later, so they were, just barely holding the tag team division together. It's two twin boys, sons of Rikishi. Marella and Kozlov were a comedy duo, thanks to Santino's antics, and Kozlov was kind of not really a foil, but a perfect companion, I'd say. They were kind of like a modern-day Abbott and Costello. I don't know if that's the best analogy. Big Show and Kane were successful in between 05 and 06 as tag champs before, so I'd say Big Show and Kane will get the Duke in this one. This one won't take very long, but it'll be longer than a minute and a half, that embarrassing 8-man tag match with the Core at Mania. Slater and Gabriel will get a little more just due, and it won't be an elimination match because this card is pretty stacked. I could just see Big Show knocking out Slater with the WMD, the Weapon of Mass Destruction. Then he pins him, 1, 2, 3, and that's it. New tag champs. So Marella and Kozlov, in this case, would have already gotten a run with the belts, and the Usos, they'll get something bigger and better later on down the line because they got to work their way up. So that's it for that. This next match I've been going back and forth about as far as what to call it. I had initially called it a Belfast Brawl, but that only made sense when Finlay was in that particular match. That was Finlay and JBL, WrestleMania 24. We're going to call this a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, coming off the heels of Clash in Paris the other night, a great match between Sheamus and Rusev. Had a big Irish feel to it, because Sheamus will be in this match. It'll be Randy Orton versus Sheamus in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. They were good rivals in the summer of 2010. They had some good matches here and there, and this could have been good long-term booking for both men. And Sheamus didn't even get on the card that night. That's a shame. Pun intended. Orton was facing off against CM Punk, but I got other plans for Punk, so we'll talk about him later. It would just be your standard brawl. Great usage of weapons. Orton would come up with clever spots with the Hangman DDT and the Backbreaker. And as I could see Sheamus using a shillelagh or some type of giant staff to beat Orton towards the end, and eventually knock him out with the bro kick followed by the high cross. They keep calling it the Celtic cross, and that's stupid because Celtic cross was Finlay's finisher, and that was like a walking Samoan drop, whereas Sheamus is a razor's edge. That's the high cross, and they called it that even as far back as ECW on Sci-Fi in 2009 for Sheamus. So yeah, Sheamus will win this one because he didn't get the victory against Triple H at the previous Mania, so he needs the Duke in this one. He's the newer guy. This next match actually did happen in real life, but it's not going to go as long as it did. Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole with the guest referee Stone Cold Steve Austin. And in Michael Cole's corner is none other than the All-American Jack Swagger. So, we're going to keep this match no more than like 10 minutes. Could be a lot of talking in the beginning. And it was fine for what it was. And I'd still have Cole go over because I did like the continuation, as much TV time as it took up, and as much intensity as it had, it shouldn't have been it shouldn't end as a one and done deal. So, you have to give as much as I hate to do this, I have to give Cole the victory because then it'll build to something better, like it did at Over the Limit that year, where Lawler got his comeuppance finally. So have him get screwed. Have the anonymous Raw GM do-da-dink chime in and make the announcement that Stone Cold was abusing his power as guest referee and attacking, Michael Cole, because the referees aren't supposed to attack the wrestlers, as you know, standard formation. And yeah, that'll be pretty much it, and that'll end the first half of this show. So yeah, no, that won't end the first half. Sorry, wait till we get to the next match. So Austin would then stunner Cole post-match and not even award him the victory, and then stun Jack Swagger, and then have some beers with Lawler, and JR would come in. JR would be the best guest announcer for this one, along with Josh Matthews, maybe Matt Stryker, but we're not going to get too carried away with announcers right now. Cole and Lawler, have Cole get the Duke, and then Lawler will get his comeuppance later on. And then we close out the first half of the show with the World Heavyweight Championship, which should not have opened the show. I don't like world titles opening shows. That defeats the purpose. Alberto Del Rio won the 2011 Royal Rumble. That was the largest Royal Rumble to date until 2018 in Saudi Arabia, when we had the greatest Royal Rumble. But that's sort of non-canon, if you will. So Del Rio should have been the main event, but he wasn't quite a strong enough character. He was still too new at the time to really be main eventing WrestleMania, so I'm glad they didn't go that direction and putting him on last, because I think there were bigger and better feuds that needed that later spot on the Mania card than Del Rio, and this is not a knock on him. I actually like him as a competitor. As a person, he's done some not-so-great things, and wasn't good to Paige in their relationship, so I don't respect him as much as a person, but as a competitor, he's fun to watch, Del Rio. Especially when him and Sheamus were going at it in 2012 for the world title. So it'd be Edge defending against Alberto Del Rio, and hard to say if this would be Edge's last match, and it was at the time in 2011, because then he had the spinal stenosis, which kept him out of action for 9 years. We thought that was his official retirement. He didn't know he was going to come back until the doctors finally cleared him again. So never say never in the world of wrestling, folks. So Edge would actually get the Duke here, because, like I said, Del Rio, a little bit too new to be winning world titles at Mania, so I'd have him build up his stock a little bit more. He'd already just debuted in August of 2010, so I don't think I'd give him the world title right away. They already did that with Sheamus in 2009 at TLC, so yeah, it'd be better to keep Edge as the champ. Edge actually hasn't won a whole lot of Mania world title matches, so this would benefit him. And Christian would be in Edge's corner, and Brodus Clay and Ricardo Rodriguez would be in Del Rio's corner, just like real life, and it'd play out just the same. They destroyed his Rolls Royce that he drove to the ring. Was it a Bentley or a Rolls Royce? Something big, fancy, expensive car. And then they destroy it with a crowbar, and Del Rio would be left crying over his car in shambles. So that'd be perfect there. And then somehow Edge and Christian could go into a feud for the world title, but we're not going to get into that yet. So maybe another time. A little fantasy booking there. See, the gears start turning when I start talking about this. So if I get a little off track, that's why. So we're going to stop right there on that one. Moving on now, we have to have a women's match here. And at the time, we didn't have the Women's Revolution, so there was only one women's match on the card. It didn't get stronger until about 2015, and then they began to be featured more prominently. But in this case, I would put Lay Cool, Michelle McCool and Layla, the fabulous duo of Lay Cool, taking on the dynamic duo of Eve Torres and Trish Stratus. Trish had a brief return to the company, as she was one of the coaches on the newly revived Tough Enough season. And I would have Eve and Trish get the Duke in this one. And in their corner would be none other than Snooki, Nicole Polizzi from the Jersey Shore, which was very popular at the time, and I was a college student then, and all this was going on. So yeah, all the kids were fist pumping back then, watching Jersey Shore. Snooki, she did okay in that. It was a mixed tag match with Ziggler and Morrison in, and that match was so short, but Snooki, I think she did like a handspring moonsault or something. It was pretty impressive, but I'm surprised she didn't continue wrestling after that. I guess she wasn't interested enough. I thought she was a fan, and she and Zack Ryder would have been good together, because Zack Ryder started out the gimmick before Jersey Shore ever came about on MTV. So Zack Ryder's the OG there, and they would have been great together. But another story for another day. So Snooki would have just been in the corner here. I'd just leave it to the wrestlers in this case. Trish and Michelle, that'd actually be a dream match, if you ask me, and I think I'd have Trish getting the chick kick and Stratisfaction on Michelle McCool and win. And Eve was the Divas champion, and she wasn't even featured on the card of Mania. If you don't feature your world champion, whether it's man or woman, then you're in trouble. So we have to give Eve her just due as well. Layla would have just been herself in the match. Next match I would have left the same here. No holds barred. Undertaker versus Triple H, and Undertaker would have definitely gotten his 19th victory, 19th consecutive victory at WrestleMania, 19-0. Not going to go into great detail. That was a great match, 5 stars. The Hell in a Cell one, my friend and I went a year later in Miami, and that was even better. But this was great too. Anytime you have Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had 2 great Mania matches back to back, as did Undertaker and Triple H. So Undertaker was on a hot streak between 09 and 12 with Mania matches, being that they were some of the best on the cards those years. And yeah, not much else I could say about it, just the brutal stuff they did in the match, and then Undertaker won after so many near-fall attempts. Then he did get injured, so they had to take him out on a golf cart or something, because the aisle was so long, and they had to bring him to the back of the stadium. So, if that's the way he had to exit, then so be it. Next match here is for the United States Championship in a fatal 4-way match. Not elimination, just one fall sudden death. The defending champion here would be Daniel Bryan, who would still be champion from Night of Champions when he defeated The Miz. Defending against Dolph Ziggler, John Morrison, and William Regal. They're probably wondering why I put William Regal here. Yes, I do like him a lot, and I think he was due for a Mania match, and Daniel Bryan was somebody who idolized William Regal a lot in his wrestling career, so storyline-wise, I would have started this out as Daniel Bryan and William Regal talk backstage, and Regal's telling him, you're certainly a master of your craft, you're a real student of the game, and I'd like to challenge you for that belt. Then somehow Ziggler and Morrison would tie into this, because they'd be having a little mini feud on Raw, and then I think Ziggler would get a U.S. title shot one week, and then somehow Morrison would cost him, and then Morrison would get a shot another week, and then Regal would somehow get involved on Bryan's behalf, and somehow they'd all intermingle, they'd all intertwine, and it'd just be this excellent fatal 4-way match, and give them at least 13 minutes, I'd say. That'd be perfect for them. And then Ziggler would get the Duke, because Ziggler's stock was really on the rise. Intercontinental Champion on SmackDown, had a world title match with Edge at Royal Rumble 2011, which was great. Then he actually was awarded the belt on an episode of SmackDown in February of 2011. February of 2011. And we had the Super Bowl champions Green Bay Packers involved in that storyline at the time. I forget who they were, because I don't watch a lot of football. And Ziggler was champion for like a good 2 hours. He was just given the belt, so it wasn't the best way to win it. So it does count as an actual reign. Edge won it back that night, securing his 11th and final world championship as of this recording. So Ziggler is definitely due for that U.S. title run, which he would end up getting in real life at Capital Punishment when he defeated Kofi. But he'd get it a lot sooner here. And, God, I hated in the spring of that year when they dyed his hair brown, and he looked just like Evan Bourne. Looks so identical to Evan Bourne, it's not even funny. I'm glad they turned him back bleach blonde. They should have kept the bleach blonde hair, which he has now, because it's a marketable look, especially for Dolph Ziggler and Nick Nemeth now in TNA. So they should have never, ever cut his hair. So that's one detail I felt needed to be said, and I said it just now. All right, we got 2 more matches here. This match really should have taken place, and this is what spawned my decision to make this video today. A steel cage match with a giant stipulation. Either John Cena's fired from WWE, or the Nexus disbands. This is going similar to Hell in a Cell 2010 with that Cena-Barrett match, where if Cena lost, he had to join Nexus, which he did. So this would be John Cena versus Wade Barrett in a steel cage match, and it's definitely the war to settle the score. This goes back to June of 2010 when the Nexus debuted in Miami on Raw and attacked John Cena. And the way I would have booked it is the Nexus should have won that match at SummerSlam. Cena should have never won, but he never should have pushed the idea of him to win. He should have listened to guys like Edge and Jericho who were telling him otherwise. You got to get the new guys over. And Cena, disagreed vehemently. And finally, years later, he felt guilty about it, as he said in a shoot interview. So, Cena would definitely win in this one. Let's just say Nexus has been getting the upper hand all this time, and the fact that this would go on so lengthy from June to April, 11 months here, really is telling of this match right here, because, the longer a feud goes, the more exciting it gets in my years of watching wrestling. I felt it was too one and done in real life. When at SummerSlam in 2010, Cena won. Nexus really only got that one victory when Wade Barrett beat him at Hell in a Cell and Cena was forced to join Nexus. And even then, he made them look like a bunch of dweebs because he kept attacking them week after week. And there's really no consequence other than the Raw GM putting him in these multi-man matches. And Barrett was just constantly looking like a jabroni all this time because he's constantly being undermined by Cena and his leadership getting usurped. And then you have Otunga trying to swoop his way in, and Otunga sucks in general, both on the mic and in the ring. So, Nexus is banned from ringside here, and it's a steel cage match to prevent such a measure. And if any Nexus member gets involved, they will all be fired. So Cena's going to win, and then Nexus disbands. Barrett at this point, I think, is ready to go on his own because he's getting this main event rub. What happened in real life was TLC 2010, of all places. This match ends in a chairs match between Cena and Barrett. And then Cena brings him to the front of the stage where they have all these tables, ladders, and chairs, especially the chairs all stacked together on wires near the entrance. And then he pulls the cord and all these chairs fall on Wade, symbolically ending Nexus and hurting all credibility that Wade Barrett had built up to that time. So I really hated that ending to TLC 2010 and ending to the original Nexus, no less. Then we had the whole new Nexus with CM Punk, and I didn't think Punk was while I love Punk, I don't think he's a great fit for Nexus. He was better off doing Straight Edge Society, but I don't want to get too far into that. Nexus never really recovered. I don't think Wade Barrett ever did really because he got pushed down the card, he did the whole core thing, and we all know how that went. So then this would push Barrett in the right direction going forward, give him an Intercontinental or U.S. title run after this, and but still try to keep him in the semi-main event spot if as best we can, not hurt his credibility. As Barrett is a great talker, still is great even on the mic. I wish he wasn't so injury-prone or he'd have a better career. He definitely could have been a world champion in time in the last decade, but it's a shame WWE didn't go in that direction. Maybe because he was so injury-prone, they thought maybe he was too much of a liability, kind of like Ken Kennedy. He was injury-prone a lot, too. And Cena would eventually go back to win the WWE Championship after that, and so keep Cena out of the title picture because this feud is so personal, it doesn't need the belt. And it would feel like a culmination of things. It'd feel more organic than what you saw at TLC 2010. So that's that. And then our main event for the WWE Championship, The Miz defending against CM Punk. Somehow The Rock would get involved. I wouldn't put The Rock with Cena yet because I don't want that to take away from Cena finishing his feud with Nexus, Wade Barrett specifically. So The Miz cashed in Money in the Bank in November of 2010, the night after Survivor Series against Randy Orton. Miz has been holding on to it, and he has Alex Riley in his corner, his second NXT rookie. His original was Daniel Bryan. So NXT Season 2 rookie was Alex Riley. So Riley gets to accompany Miz down the aisle in the main event at WrestleMania, just like he did in real life, Mania 27. CM Punk would have turned face by this point. He and Edge traded places in October of 2010. CM Punk was traded to Raw in exchange for Edge going to SmackDown. Straight Edge Society, sadly, had already disbanded, and I think Luke Gallows and Serena were already getting granted their releases by this point. Joey Mercury was settled into the road agent role, so he was kind of kept off TV for a long time until 2015 with 2014, 2015 with the Authority and the J&J security angle. So Punk would have been a face. He still would have had his Straight Edge Society logo on his Minitron or whatever. And he would have started his Voice of the Voiceless stuff. Not quite the pipe bomb. I'd still wait until the pipe bomb in June of that year, like it did happen in real life, and then eventually built to facing Cena at Money in the Bank in Chicago. Cena will win the belt back. So I'd have Miz go over in this one by the flukiest of circumstances. Now, I don't know how we tie The Rock into this one. We might not even put him in here, because Rock and Punk wouldn't have anything to do with each other until 2013, I want to say. And The Miz and The Rock, actually that could work for The Miz's standpoint. So like The Rock could go in and rock bottom The Miz while they're all out cold, including the ref. Give The Miz a rock bottom and a people's elbow. Punk tries to come in, but somehow Alex Riley sneaks in with his Money in the Bank briefcase. He always carried a silver briefcase, Riley did, even though Miz already cashed in. He just wanted to look important. Then somehow Miz would get the Duke, and that would end Mania. So it wouldn't end Mania on a glorious note, but the faces don't always have to walk out as the champion. Just look at WrestleMania 2000. Triple H walked out as a heel champion, though Rock really should have won, but I already talked about that in another video. But there's, like I said, Babyface does not need to always end WrestleMania. It doesn't have to end on a happy-go-lucky note. So, if Miz wins this one, that's fine with me, and then Punk will eventually get his just due later that summer when he wins the WWE Championship from Cena, Money in the Bank in Chicago. So let me know your thoughts, see what you think about this rewritten WrestleMania 27 card. And this has been another great edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling, and until next time, everybody, bye-bye.